Good morning, Stacy.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Good, thank you. And you? It's dark. Even here is still dark, so what to say about you?
Yeah. Yeah, but it was a beautiful day yesterday. So we've had a couple of really lovely days. Maybe a little too warm almost. So,
Yeah, it's quite warm. Unexpected. We don't use anymore the heater in the house.
yeah.
Yeah, it's nearly too hot to sleep. Yes, you need colder in the night.
I had to leave our window cracked open last night. That's a first for the year.
Right. Okay. All right. I will start with mantra. They will join, I guess.
Perfect.
Om. वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य म आणिस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासिः अनेनाधीतेन होरात्रान् Samdadhami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram Avatu Vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Right, we were in this beautiful hymn, Apri-Suktas, the hymn of love, which is actually the hymn of the sacrifice. And so we stopped at number 5, Devih Dvaro Vishrayadvam Suprayana Na Utaye Praprayajñam Pranitana. This is Gayatri. Rhythm 888. Devih Dvaro Vishrayadvam. Vishrayadvam is a command open, wide, V, wide. Devi, the divine doors, literally. And doors are in the feminine gender, and Devi is like the goddesses' doors, goddesses' portals open wide. Suprayana na utaye, giving us, yeah, easy passage for our expanding utaye, for the growth. Pra Yajñam Pranitana. This is typical for Vedic language, which you can't find in classical. Doubled prefix standing separately from the verb pranitana. So forward, as it were. Yeah? Feel forward the sacrifice. Further lead and fill full our sacrifice. That's how Sri Aurobindo translates. So my interpretation, the goddesses which introduce the aspirant to the heavenly path of his growth and expansion are called Devi Dvara. In all the Apri-Suktas they are mentioned. It's a typical for Apri-Suktas, the same procedure they have in every type of these verses. They should feel the sacrifice with their heavenly presence more and more. They seem to be the same goddesses who are mentioned later in the 8th verse, Ila Saraswati Mahi Tisro Devih Mayo Bhuvah. Then we will come to this verse. That is why they should fill full our sacrifice. So the very word here, pranitana, fill, full, yes, make it full. It tells us that these devi are actually the streams, the currents, the rivers, the waters. Usually devi, the goddesses, are rivers. Uh, they are dynamic in the Veda. There are 7 rivers, and 3 of them will be mentioned later, Ila, Saraswati, Mahi. But here, references to all of them, I guess. So all the rivers have to flow. And there is something interesting about the rivers, and I believe it is because of this vision of the sacrifice. Yes, the sacrifice is a constant movement and exchange of form with form and interaction. And if this interaction and movement and current stops, then life stops. You know, it's like bloodstream. Yes, it has to flow. The moment blood stops flowing through the body dies. It's like connecting currents of consciousness and power and nourishment and delight. If the delight is not being exchanged, the world dies out. There's some idea of this constant current, which we don't see immediately because we are looking at the world statically, mentally. We think that it is like everyone exists by itself, like, being separately existing, static. But here, they look at it from this view, and they are portals, they are heavenly portals. So to say, they are opening us to the higher levels. So these currents are not just flowing in the kind of horizontal way only, they are flowing in the vertical way. They connect us to these horizontal levels, to these higher levels of consciousness and being. And if we look at our constitution of our bodies, of our beings, we will see that though we see only the physical body, still there are within the physical there is a vital, the subtle physical, vital, higher mental, higher mental, and beyond. So there are bodies within the bodies, so to say, and all of them receive some currents. They are all connected, yeah. Otherwise, the functionality of this simple body would not take place, would not be possible. And that's why this feel more and more our sacrifice forward. And it's quite interesting, the word forward, because pra means forward. Forward, the sacrifice, our transformation, feel. So why forward feel? How can you feel forward? That means in time. Yeah, fulfill in time more and more. So the time factor is here. So there is a constant movement forward. And that forward movement has to be filled by these rivers. Otherwise, there will be no future. As simple as that. So we would not survive tomorrow if our currents would stop today. So they have to fill forward towards the future, towards tomorrow. They have to push. That's how the whole movement of creation is pushed forward. Yeah? It's a beautiful image. We don't see it until we see it, and then we understand why they speak in those terms.
So can I ask, what is the full meaning of the sacrifice that they're referring to?
it's a constant change, constant transformation of our physical, vital, and mental bodies by the presence of the higher consciousness or the divine forces, powers of consciousness. So there is a constant ongoing transformation, transmutation, evolution of consciousness. And if that evolution stops, then there would be no world. So yajnam is very loaded. Yajna is a very loaded term, sacrifice, making everything sacred more and more, making it alive more and more, making it kind of immortal more and more, though it is on the surface it is mortal, in the inner parts it is immortal, and that immortal inner part has to reach to the surface more and more, making the surface more suitable for the inner part to manifest. This is the sacrifice. That's what we represent here, actually. All our life is about this and nothing else. We think in terms of doing something or achieving something, but these are the symbols of that conquest of the spirit, or by the spirit of our unconscious nature. We see parts in ourselves which are very unconscious and very resisting and lazy and this and that, and we apply constantly some force onto them, some energy, some consciousness. We are constantly dealing with them, making order in our rooms, in our selves, in our health, and so we are constantly trying to manage this unmanageable being, which if you would leave it be, it would fall apart or fall into oblivion because it's not conscious enough. So we need to apply to it constantly attention of our inner consciousness. That's what we do. That's what we call life. And we don't see it from this perspective. So the Vedic symbol of the heavenly waters is described by Sri Aurobindo in The Secret of the Veda. Our direct truth perceptions of the other, on the other hand, come from the supermind, a will that knows and a knowledge that affects, which creates universal order out of infinity. Its awakening into action brings down, says the Veda, the unrestricted downpour of the rain of heaven, the full flowing of the 7 rivers from a superior sea of light and power and joy. It reveals Satchitananda. So these rivers finally, at the end of their kind of action, will reveal the transcendental being which is charging them with life. If that charging would stop, the life would stop here in manifestation. Because manifestation is nothing but revelation of that transcendental being. And then, Supratike Vayovriddha Yahviritasya Matara Dosham Ushasam Imahe. So beautiful. Darkness and dawn. We will speak about them more. We desire 2 mighty mothers of the truth, fairly fronting us, increases of our spacious being. My interpretation, we desire the night and dawn, says the Rishi, which is quite an unusual statement. Why to desire night? But if we follow its real meaning, explained by Sri Aurobindo in the note, night and day, symbols of the alternation of the divine and human consciousness in us. The night of our ordinary consciousness holds and prepares all that the dawn brings out into conscious being. Then we would understand that they are both necessary for the birth of the soul within man. Or, as it was already mentioned in the previous hymn, to deliver Agni, that he could become the white steed in front of the days. Again, two mothers were mentioned there, dawn and night. Now, this alternation of dawn and night, which we see every day we have to fall asleep. We sleep half of our life, actually. And so where do we go, actually, in that period of time? We go somewhere inside. We disappear from the surface of consciousness and have some experiences there, some dreams. Today I had such weird dreams. I was reading some very secret script which was telling me about the future, but when I woke up I just saw the few signs but couldn't really make out what it was. So these dreams, this night, is some kind of accumulation of everything what we acquired during the day. All our experiences are being settled within the system. And we kind of recapture them in the spiritual sense. We need our body to rest because it needs to take in all the hits, all the experiences, all the changes we created within the system, and it needs to accumulate it. So it's a constant accumulation of light into the place of what we represent, darkness, ordinary consciousness. So we came to this darkness. We took onto ourselves this darkness, this night, and became this darkness on the surface. Now we need to charge it with light, exactly that idea of the sacrifice. So how do we do it? We need a time for assimilation of our active consciousness into our passive kind of strata or data. So it is taking place through nights. So it's constantly when we rise above, then we have to dive deep. The higher we rise, the deeper we dive. So we take more and more the elements from the darkness to transform it into their divine prototypes, so to say. And we notice this where the moment we are becoming very active and very conscious and very happy, there has to be a balance. It needs some rest or some even opposite, some tears after some laughter. So we need to bring that light and that bliss into the depth of our unconscious being. And that's why this arrangement is made. And so these two, darkness and dawn, Sri Aurobindo gives this here, the explanation, night and day, symbols of the alternation of the divine and human consciousness in us. The night of our ordinary consciousness holds and prepares all that the dawn brings out into conscious being. I just read it. By the way, Sri Aurobindo beautifully begins his Savitri, if you remember, with the night and ends with the night. The whole Savitri begins and ends with the night. So he starts, it was the hour before the gods awake. across the path of the divine event, a huge foreboding mind of night, alone in her unlit temple of eternity, lay stretched, immobile, upon silence march. Now, this is interesting because across the path of the divine event, we come, and across our path, there will be the night, the huge body. So we have to cross through the night. As Sri Aurobindo somewhere else says, night is not our beginning, nor our end. We come to her from the supernal light. By light we live, and to the light we go. So, though night is our passage, it's not who we are. And we don't live by night, we live by light. We come from light and go to light and live by light, but we cross this path of night. So these are Vedic imageries which Sri Aurobindo adopted in his Savitri. These two mothers of Aditi, the light, and Diti, the night. The kind of infinite consciousness force and divided consciousness force, which separates everything by darkness. Darkness is nothing but that gap which separates divine from the divine, us, which creates multiplicity. And time, of course, as it is said in another hymn of the Rig Veda, that the night was born out of the dark, out of the light, out of the supernal light. And from the night, the ocean of the inconscient came into being. And from that ocean, the ocean is the Lord of time, of all that moves. Now, the inconscient becomes the measurement of time, the rhythm of time. The darkness is actually that which creates what we know as movement, because the divine cannot sustain itself in the darkness other than by movement. It must move, otherwise it would not sustain itself in the absence of light and consciousness. This is this constant movement of the universe. Nothing stays static here. Everything moves. Electron moves around nuclear in the atom constantly with a huge speed. Everything moves. Yeah? Nothing stays static. Otherwise it would fall into oblivion. Rashi is writing something. Well, so these two mothers, they are the mothers of Agni. She's busy. I wrote to her, no biggie. So they produce something, because these two mothers, interestingly, in another place where to the hymn of Agni, it is said that they are the two mothers of fire, of Agni. They are feeding him constantly, the night and the dawn. Both of them are feeding him and his growth. Not only dawn is feeding him with light, but night also is feeding him with all the substance which fire has to take into itself, into himself, to turn it into the divine properties. So he will be burning something, which would be given to him as unconscious being. So both of them are participating in his growth. And again, Doshamushasam imahe. It's such a beautiful. We aspire towards night and dawn. Yahviritasya matara. They are two mothers of the dynamic truth. They are two mothers full of energy of the dynamic truth. Why? Because with these light and dawn, both of them create the dynamism of the truth here in manifestation. So as Sri Aurobindo starts his Savitri with the night, though he also ends with the night. And I will read to you the end of Savitri. It's quite amazing, really. So he started with the night across the path of the divine event, and he ends his Savitri in this beautiful passage I will read from the book. Numberless the stars swam on their shadowy field, describing in the gloom the ways of light. This is the night, starry night. Then, while they skirted yet the southern verge, lost in the halo of her musing brows, night, splendid, with the moon dreaming in heaven, in silver peace, possessed her luminous reign. She brooded through her stillness on a thought, deep guarded by the mystic folds of light, and in her bosom nursed a greater dawn. She is pregnant with the dawn, and the greater dawn is coming. This is a constant, ongoing Vedic vision of night and dawn, two mothers of the whole creation. This is the meaning of the dynamic truth, actually. And then there is a next verse. Vatasya Patman Ilita Daiviya Hotara Daiviya Hotara Manushach Imam no Yajnam Agatam Vatasya Patman Ilita Daiviya Hotara Manushach Imam no Yajnam Agatam. And, O ye divine priests, it's interesting, and we will speak about these divine priests now in a minute, two of them, of our humanity, O worshipped twine, approach on the path of life breath to this our sacrifice. Two mysterious hotars. Two mysterious. Hotar is usually a fire, hotri, the one who invokes the gods. So there are two mysterious invokers, or summoners of the gods. The two divine hotars on the path of the wind, or the life breath, are explained by Sayana as Agni and Surya, as the fire in heaven and fire on earth, as they may be connected with heaven and earth, day and night, and their locations. The path of the wind, Vata, Vayu, connects them from earth to heaven and from heaven to earth. It is like a double turbulence. Yeah? These three, so to say, Surya, Vata, or Vayu, and Agni, are to be united for the fulfillment of the sacrifice. So these two hotars, Surya, the sun in heaven, as the quintessence of heaven, and Agni as quintessence of earth, as the divine element in earth and divine element in heaven, have to connect. They generate and manifest the world in its life force. Life itself is the result or the product of these two hotars acting upon each other, or aspiring to one another. We spoke before about these two, yeah? If you remember, three fires, three essences, essence of earth, of space in between heaven and earth, and heaven, like three fires which have to be united, and that is exactly Agni, Vayu, and Surya, or Vata and Surya or Aditya. So they, when they are united into one fire, the sacrifice is fulfilled. These two hotars, there is a beautiful also hymn in Mandala 10 to Havirdhana. There are two Havirdhana, two holders of Havich. Havich is that exactly that which Hotar is offering. Yeah? From Ruduhu, the same, Hotar and Havi. Havi is the offering put into fire. So there are two holders, Dahana, of the offering. One is the sun, which is uninvolved above the head, so to say, and there is sun which is involved in the darkness, hidden in the darkness. So these two suns, as it were, act and generate and manifest the world. And these are the Havirdhanas, or two hotars, which are mentioned here. So though we know the lower hotar as fire, but this fire is rising from the depth of earth, as it were. If you think of it, where it is coming from, if you look at our earth even physically, you will see that the core of earth is a fire. It's amazing. We don't even think about it. We think the earth is a hard surface. But truly speaking, within the earth, there is the burning fire, magma, which is like the same as in the sun. Yeah? So we have two fires within, and that is the hidden sun, as it were, in the Veda. And it is said in the other hymn that the fire is rising from Vivasvat, rising. Vivasvat is the lord of the sun, but the sun which is involved. And this is something interesting. How can fire rise from the sun? You know, that means the sun is below, so to say. So the fire is rising from the sun. So that hidden sun, hidden by the asuras within the darkness, is exactly the other sun, or this Haviradhana, another hotar. And it is also known that the fire is the son of Rudra, and Rudra holds on his shoulders the whole nature. It is that hidden divine within the nature, that hidden sun. And there is another Vishnu in heaven who is uninvolved, kind of reaching out through Indra to our surface. Yeah? to our manifestation. So on one side, Agni is rising, and from the other side, Indra is leaping down with his lightnings. And this Agni and Indra have to come together. These are two hotars, which create life force, Vata, Vatasya Patman. The fly of Vata they create. Or on the path of Vata, you too approach our transformation. It's quite interesting because Yajnam is considered in Brahmanas especially as the place of Vayu. Vayu is Yajna, Vayu Pavamana. Vayu, it is this space in between heaven and earth where the real transformation is taking place. So approach our transformation, both of you, the heavenly divine and the earthly divine, for our transformation here. Literally, this earthly divine is invocation. Yeah, Agni is a constantly calling to the divine, and the higher upper divine is answering to its call. So to say, the call and the answer, as Shubinda somewhere in starting the mother work of the mother says, there are two forces who alone can accomplish the aim of our endeavor. It is uninterrupted and constant aspiration from below and the grace from above that answers. There is nothing else which can accomplish our endeavor here, only these two forces, two hotars. You see how much is loaded into these simple images. And then these three rivers mentioned. Ila Sarasvati Mahi Tisro Devich Mayo Bhuvach Barhir Siddhanto Asredhach. She of the vision of knowledge, that's how Sri Aurobindo translates Ila. She of its flowing inspiration, Sarasvati. She of its vastness, Mahi. Three goddesses who give birth to the bliss, Mayobhuvah. They who stumble not, Asredhah, may take their seats, Siddhanto, at the altar strewn of the sacrifice, Barhis. I will speak about this word Barhis. Barhis is this grass, special grass, kusha grass, yes, which is put into the sacred place for the gods to take seat. So please hear Indra, hear Varuna, hear Mitra. For everyone, for every godhead, there is a special seat around the sacrifice, around the fire. So they are all invited to take a seat on this kusha grass, or this barhis. And the word barhis is from root brich, to extend, to extend our consciousness or space for them to take place in us. We must prepare the space for them. We must clean it up to invite these higher powers to act and to settle down within ourselves, around our center, around our invocation, around our flame of aspiration from the heart. So may they all be settled, or take their seats around our fire, those who cannot stumble, Asridhah, perfect in their action, creators of bliss, Mayo Bhuvah, the three rivers. And of these three rivers, he will be speaking more, and we will read a few of his quotations. Ila, Saraswati, Mahi, the names of the are translated in order to give the idea of their functions. And those who stumble not or are not assailed cannot be attacked by ignorance and darkness, cause of our suffering. So asridhah also can be translated in that way, but it's very close to the same. Cannot stumble, cannot make mistakes, cannot be obstructed. So, according to the translational views, Ila, Saraswati, and Mahi are personifications of Agni, Agni Murtayah. It's according to the traditional view of Sayana. They are also three personified flames of fire. As goddesses, Ila, earth, bride of Vishnu, Saraswati is the goddess of eloquence, wife of Brahma, and Bharati is speech, wife of Bharata and Aditya. Sri Aurobindo gives another psychological interpretation to these three rivers. Saraswati is the word, the inspiration, as I suggest, says Sri Aurobindo, that comes from the rhythm, the truth consciousness. Bharati and Ila must also be different forms of the same word or knowledge. The three, Ila, Mahi, or Bharati and Saraswati, are associated together in a constant formula in those hymns of invocation in which the gods are called by Agni to the sacrifice. These are Apri-Suktas. As Saraswati represents the truth audition, Shruti, which gives the inspired word, so Ila represents Drishti, the truth vision. If so, since Drishti and Shruti are the two powers of Rishi, the Kavi, the seer of truth, we can understand the close connection of Ila and Saraswati. Bharati or Mahi is the largeness of the truth consciousness which, dawning on man's limited mind, brings with it the two sister puissances. The two sister puissances, these are the Drishti and Shruti. So the manifestation is taking place through this vastness. We can also understand how these fine and living distinctions came afterwards to be neglected as the Vedic knowledge declined and Bharati, Saraswati, and Ila melted into one river. We may note also that these three goddesses are said to bring to birth for man the bliss, Mayas. I have already insisted on the constant relation as conceived by the Vedic seers between the truth and the bliss or Ananda. It is by the dawning of the true or infinite consciousness in man that he arrives out of this evil dream of pain and suffering, this divided creation, into the bliss, the happy state variously described in Veda by the words Bhadram Mayas, Swasti, love or bliss, the good state of existence, right being, Swasti. And by others less technically used, such as Viryam, Raih, Raya. For the Vedic Rishi, truth is the passage and the antechamber. That means most probably a corridor, yes, the chamber before the chamber. The bliss of the divine existence is the goal, and or else truth is the foundation, bliss is the supreme result. So the truth is the passage, the corridor to the whole of bliss. We need the truth to arrive at bliss. It's quite amazing to think of this in this way. So these three, he says about them many things in other places. I don't give all the quotations. And you know, the whole discovery of the Vedic knowledge started for Sri Aurobindo started with the vision of these three rivers. He started to see them written down. He saw Ila, Saraswati, Mahi. In this subtle vision, he started to see them written down with Sanskrit. And he was wondering, what is this coming to him? In the particular state in which he was, in this dynamic state of truth, they started to come written. And then he found them in the Veda. And then he saw that they are describing exactly the experience he had. And from there he started all his interpretation. He said that before he didn't see much in the Veda knowledge. He thought it was more like a religion from the past. He saw much more knowledge in the Upanishads and in the Gita, because they're speaking directly about this knowledge and are not hiding it or packing it into this symbolism. But once he discovered Rig Veda, Vedic knowledge, he saw the language he needed to describe his own experiences. That's what he says. He found the language which was suitable to describe his own experiences. That is how he came to this psychological interpretation of the Veda. Because the Upanishads and the Gita were not enough. They were not really doing that justice to his experience. They were kind of depicting what is to happen or instructing how it should go, but not really describing, giving this, deeper sense or presence in the language which could help come to that experience directly. And that is only in the Veda he found this language. It's amazing to think of. And that's how his Savitri is so Vedic. All right. And then we move to Tvashtar. Maybe I will stop here, because Tvashtar is totally another topic. So there will be a shift, a drift towards a new idea. So if you have some thoughts or want to share something or to ask, please go ahead. I hope
Hi, Vladimir.
Hi, Preet.
Hi, Stacy. Sorry, I'm not switching on my video because I'm on the road sitting on the bench and doing the session. But I'll just switch on. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So for today, what I understood is basically breath is something which connects both the organs from the heaven and the earth. So breath is the key, one key practice of that.
Absolutely. That's why breathing in and breathing out. And the life force is so mysterious. We do not know where it comes from, why we are living at all, Why should this matter live, live, develop, eat, grow? It's unbelievable if you think of it. So where that force comes from, from these exchange of these two. The divine is behind it, yes, charging it with energy.
So beautiful. And how is, sorry.
No, go ahead. I want to hear you.
I was saying, I was saying, how is Indra, like you said, a point when you were talking about Indra as an essence of Agni at some realm. I couldn't get that part.
Say it again. I didn't understand. There are
Indra,
Indra and Agni. Yeah?
Indra, yeah.
Agni is considered to be the son of Rudra or Shiva. Yeah? So to say. Shiva is that foundation, that sun within the nature which upholds everything. Ashutosha, easily satisfied with any effort. So his son is Agni, flaming out, calling to the divine from above. It's interesting that in Shiva Purana it is said that somebody asked Shiva, "What are you contemplating upon?" Shiva is sitting in meditation. And he says, "I'm contemplating upon Vishnu." So, and Vishnu is that above, uninvolved being over mind, yeah? From which Indra is the result, his elder brother who is leaping down. Indra is gathering all the power of Vishnu from above to reach down, to leap down and to connect to the calling of Agni. And so when they come together, Shiva and Vishnu, then the sacrifice is fulfilled. And there is one more in the Veda. It is Brihaspati or Brahmanaspati, who is the Lord in the heart, who with his word connects these two. The Agni is being shaped by the mantra, by the word of Brihaspati, to reach to heaven and to connect to Indra and to pull Indra down. And once this uninvolved divine comes down, leaps down, brings this pure divine influence from which was not evolving but becoming involved, then there is a new formation is taking place in manifestation, and manifestation is being recharged or rebooted, if you want, and gets a new impulse of life.
This sounds so fascinating, Vladimir.
Yeah.
So, and like the other thought which comes is that if Brihaspati is the words come from Brihaspati, then Saraswati is also the word, the power of words, right? So how is it?
Yeah, so Ila, Saraswati and Mahi, these are two streams of the supermind. Sri Aurobindo speaks about this Drishti, Shruti, and Viveka in a way, yes? Seeing, hearing, and discernment or intuition. So seeing, hearing, and intuition are two powers of our consciousness which are constantly reaching out to us, yeah? So there will be some revelation in the sight, in the vision, some revelation in the understanding, comprehension, that is Shruti, inspired knowledge, inspirational knowledge, which means comprehension actually. And finally, the intuition. We will see it's like a touch, intuition like a touch. So seeing, hearing, touch, these three major faculties of consciousness we spoke about before. They are coming, reaching out from the supermind, feeding us with higher knowledge. Yeah,
What is the best way to, sorry?
Yeah, these are the rivers, yeah.
So I was saying, what is the best way to connect to the Shruti and, I mean, seeing, hearing, and intuition? I mean, I think intuition just comes. We have to wait for it. But for seeing and hearing, how do we really see?
Yeah, intuition is the result of seeing and hearing coming together, actually. The touch is, interestingly, is the result of both seeing and hearing. And because you see, when we touch and we feel the substance, yeah, that is the seeing. Seeing is always something substantial, something self, yeah, you see the self. Apprehensive cognition, you apprehend the form. And to comprehend the form is your hearing. Yeah? You have to understand what this form is about. So when you touch, you apprehend the form, you feel that it is hard or soft, yeah? And then you understand what it is about. Is it friendly? Is it loving? Is it angry? So you understand what this form does to you. So within the touch, by the touch, we have two elements of seeing and hearing within the touch. It's quite interesting.
And we have to be rooted in somewhere in the heart to be able to sort of actually comprehend it with purity and not distort what we're seeing and hearing. Like often we do external seeing and hearing.
Even externally and internally and externally, the consciousness is pervading everything. Only we are treating it as if externally is something else. Of course, there are more obstacles, but the fundamental nature of these three rivers remains. Yeah. So the touch, even external touch, if you touch somebody, you know why they shake hands. Yeah? Because by shaking hands, you read much more than just if they say that they want to show that there is no weapon. I don't believe it. I think there's more to it. It's something like to feel the person, yeah? To feel the impulse, to feel the intention, so to say, to cognize to comprehend what person is, and to feel also the shape, the grip, the form. Yeah, so contact with the form, that we become one in form, and also comprehend the intention. Okay. We can stop here today and continue next time with Tvashtar. Tvashtar is an amazing topic, typically Vedic. We will have to speak quite a lot on this vision of Tvashtar. Okay, I will close with mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santo Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.